Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijoma, and I thank you for joining me for another episode. And this week, my guest is Alicia Jamelian, and she runs the Etsy shop One Blushing Bride. Alicia has blown me away, first of all, just with her email. It was just one of those that I get and I just can't stop smiling. And so I'm so thrilled to have her on the podcast. Alicia, welcome to the podcast, and thank you so much for being my guest.
Oh, Ijoma, the pleasure is all mine. I've been so excited all day, actually all week since I've known I was coming on.
Oh, so before we start, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Alicia, and I am the owner and designer of One Blushing Bride. I create handcrafted custom wedding veils and bridal accessories. And I think my very best days are the days where I get to sit down at my sewing machine. I actually have more than one. I have 3 sewing machines.
Wow.
So I have options depending on how I'm feeling and which sewing machine is calling my name. So those days when I get to sit down at my sewing machine and just work on my veils are my favorite days in the world. And there's something really therapeutic about it, watching the needle go up and down. I live in Southern California and I have my studio here. I've lived here for most of my life, although I did live in London for a couple of years as a young girl. But other than that, I was born and raised in Southern California. And some of my passions would be my family, my faith, and of course, sewing, and coffee too. Coffee.
Now, are you completely self-taught or did you take formal classes in sewing?
Actually, I am self-taught. I come from a family of fairly crafty people, and my grandparents on both sides of my family have had experience with sewing and different seamstress sort of work. But I did not have any formal classes, and nobody taught me either. You know, the great thing about this day and age is that you can learn so much just from YouTube videos and books and podcasts. So I'm completely self-taught.
That always amazes me because I know that a lot of people can take tutorials or watch videos and teach themselves things. But when you throw a machine in there, I'm like, okay, the machine part scares me. It's like, it's a sewing machine. You know, you need to know what all the parts are. At least in my head, I feel like I need to know what all the parts are called before I can use them. But then it doesn't make sense because I don't know what all the parts in my car are called, but I can drive it. So,
well, I've had a lot of trial and error, and definitely a lot on the error part in regards to the sewing machines and big, huge mistakes. And, you know, you learn as you go along.
Yeah. Now, does the sewing machine you use, is the type of veil or the accessory you're making, does that determine which of the machines you use, or it's more just how you're feeling that day?
Actually, it does depend on the product that I'm making. I have certain machines that are better for certain sort of work. I have a nice Singer machine that is kind of my day-to-day go-to sewing machine, and this is the oldest machine that I have. I got it as a birthday present when I was 16 years old. My parents gave it to me, and I was so excited to learn on it. And I am most comfortable on that machine because I've been working on it for so many years. But that being said, it's actually I'd say it's the simplest machines of all of my machines. I also have one that does more detailed work, and that can do really fine stitching. And that's good for the detail work of veils if it's something that's really intricate and needs close stitching. And then my last machine is my new baby, and I'm very excited about it because it's the new addition to my family. It is my embroidery machine, and it does embroidery work. And this thing is incredible. I just watching it go it amazes me sometimes. So I don't have to do much for that. I just set it all to work, and then it can do custom monograms, and I can do the monograms actually on the veil material itself and customize it in that way. So yeah, those are my 3 machines.
So the embroidery machine must have a very delicate type of needle to be able to print or sew right onto a veil, because veils are very delicate typically.
Yes, and that is something that is not super common to see embroidery on the tool of the veil itself. It actually involves quite an extensive process of something called stabilizing the material, where you have to really make sure that it's sturdy and the fabric is not going to break or get caught in the needle or in the machine. And I'm still in the process of really kind of fine-tuning the details, but it's definitely more intricate work than just doing embroidery on a regular sort of fabric, and it's more time intensive, but it's so worth it when it's all done, because it's something that's so unique, and I'm a little bit biased, but still it's something that I think is incredibly unique and beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. Now, so 7 years, over 1,000 brides in more than 10 countries later, how did you first find Etsy? What began this journey?
Well, I think my love of fabric is what started this journey. And when I was about 12 or 13 years old, I had kind of that's kind of a hard age in general for kids. And I had some health things going on, and my parents actually pulled me out of school for a couple of years. So like 7th and 9th grade, and I was homeschooled. And my mom was hugely influential. She wanted me to find something that I would be passionate about and that would get me excited, and something that would really kind of keep me going. And because for her, the creative arts had been so influential for her. She's actually a knitting designer, and she does these beautiful shawls, and she's incredibly talented. So she would take me to the fabric store, and I would just walk down the aisles and see these incredible hundreds of bolts of fabric and all these different satins and silks and laces. And I knew I wanted to do something with them. I just didn't know exactly how to get there. And so that was the beginning of my obsession with fabric. And I never thought about selling my pieces because it was always just a hobby of mine. But my mom had opened her own Etsy shop back in 2009, maybe 2010. And so I decided I think I can do this as well. So I opened my own shop in 2011, and I was not exactly sure how it would go. Sometimes as creative people, it's tempting to, you can make something for yourself and really enjoy it, but you just don't expect somebody to be willing to pay money for it.
Yes.
And so that first sale was a shock to me. And I've learned so much over the years. I didn't necessarily start with the wedding veils. I did start doing things that were more simple, like garters and ring bearer pillows. But then I had a cousin who was actually getting married, and she said, "Alicia, will you make my veil for my wedding day?" And I was surprised that she would have so much trust in me. I think the wedding veil is a very important part of the wedding day. And so that was the first veil that I made. And since then, I've made veils for both of my sisters. And as you said, I've had over 1,000 brides and many different countries that I've worked with. And it's been an incredible journey.
That is so fascinating. Now, do you remember how soon after you made the first product you got that sale? Were you still worrying about whether or not anyone would want to pay money for it, and then the sale came through? Or did it take a long time before you got your very first sale, if you can remember back then?
I know it wasn't right away. It was at least 1 to 2 months until I got that first sale.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a while. And my photography definitely wasn't that great. And I didn't know anything about SEO or getting found in search engines. And I was a total newbie. I didn't have any sort of formal business training or marketing training or even professional seamstress or, sewing sorts of classes that I had done. So I was learning it all from the ground up, and it was just something that I was so passionate about. So it took a couple of months until I got that first sale. And when I heard that first cha-ching, I was doing quite a happy dance.
I can imagine. Would you say that back then, because it sounds like because you felt like you didn't have formal training and you hadn't taken any classes, would you say that then you priced your product based on what your thoughts were as far as your, I guess, validation as a seamstress, as a formal seamstress?
Absolutely. That's a really good question. And my beginning prices were definitely fairly low, which I think a lot of people who are selling and first starting out, I think they can do that because you don't have that reputation yet. You don't have any reviews, you don't have any formal experience. And so you just feel uncertain about whether somebody is going to want to pay money. And kind of over the years, as my skills have increased, it's a process of learning to value what you do and to realize that you do have a unique talent and that you are worth whatever it is that you're asking people to pay. And sometimes it can be hard because I'm dealing with wedding veils, and so in general the prices are more expensive. They're definitely over $100, and so it's a bigger purchase. And sometimes when I was starting out, I might feel bad about asking for that. But it's a process of kind of learning that whatever it is that you have to bring to the table is valuable, and you have that time and that expertise that you're bringing, and learning not to undercut yourself, and to be okay with the fact that your prices might be more than someone wants to be willing to pay, and you're not going to be all things to all people, and that's okay.
Yeah, I like that. It's true. You can't be all things to all people because you have to determine what market you're going to serve. Was that a conscious decision for you to decide who your specific clients were going to be and what they could afford, and just know that there were some people that were going to think you were out of their range, either on the top end or on the low end? Because there are some people who, I feel determined that they want something that's expensive just because of the price tag.
I would say that when I was first starting out, I've had my shop for over 7 years now, and it hasn't been until more recent years that I've given more thought to what my customer is and what it is they're looking for and who my ideal customer is. And that is not something I was thinking about in the beginning. In the beginning, I was just thinking, I want to make these pretty things and I enjoy doing this, and let's see where it can go. But I think as your business starts to grow and as you start to define what your brand is, it's important to take a step back and think about these things. And you don't have to have some whole worksheet that you fill out about that's super detailed. It's just, you can make notes on your phone, something you could be thinking about. For me, I have a notes section on my phone where I write down new ideas for my brand or any ideas for marketing, and I just keep them with me on the go, and that helps me to kind of stay organized. So I have some notes on there in regards to who my ideal client is, and I made the decision that I didn't want to be somewhere stuck in the middle. So I think in general, when you're talking about brands, it's easier if you're on one of the two extremes. Either you're going to compete on price and try to be the very best priced and not a cheap item, but maybe an item that's more affordable. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that there's definitely a market for that, and people want items that they can get for a good deal.
Yeah.
Or you can compete on the more high-end scale. And I chose to go the more high-end route, basically because I like to work with materials that are more high-end. That's important to me, to be able to use materials that I really enjoy the feel of, and that I can stand back and look at a piece and just feel so proud of it and want to look at it all day. I mean, that's what I enjoy doing. And for me, I wasn't going to be able to achieve that if I competed on the price. So although my veils are much more reasonable than certain bridal salons, I did make that conscious decision to be more of a luxury brand, or at least that is the goal.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. That makes sense. So when you started your Etsy shop, you had a safety net because you were working as a paralegal. So you had an opportunity to try out Etsy, see if selling on Etsy was something viable. Now, over the course of time, this is your full-time gig. Now, you are a full-time small business owner, not just an Etsy shop seller. I want to make that clear. And you left your full-time employment. So can we talk about that? Can we talk about what that transition was like when you first opened Etsy, whether it was your goal and how you set milestones to reach the goal of becoming your own boss? Was that too many questions all at once?
No, you explained yourself beautifully. And they all kind of go together. So I would say, as you mentioned, it did not start off as my full-time job. It actually was something that I was doing just to earn a little bit of extra money in my senior year of high school and all throughout college. I was doing this Etsy business, and it was always something that was just a hobby of mine. I was incredibly passionate about it, but I'm a fairly practical person. And for me, I just knew it would be it's very hard to run a small business. And I know that just from talking to other business owners. And so I always knew that that wouldn't be the easiest route and probably not the most practical route. And so that made me cautious, and I never fully went into it thinking that I'm going to be this full-time entrepreneur and business owner. And in a certain way, that made the process easier because I went into it without these super high expectations, and that takes off a little bit of the pressure. It kind of grew naturally without me having to worry about, am I earning enough to cover all of my expenses and to earn a living and, be able to put a roof over my head and all of this sort of stuff. And it got to the point when I was working at the law firm as a paralegal, where it was a good job and very secure. But my business, One Blushing Bride, was growing to the point where I couldn't keep up with everything. And I wanted to make One Blushing Bride work. And I knew that if I didn't take that step, that I probably never would. So it was a difficult decision to make, but at the same time, I knew that I had to do it, or I would always be looking back and thinking, what if I had tried that? So I actually proposed the idea to my dad, and that was quite an interesting situation. I think I might have given him a mini heart attack, but I knew I had to propose it to him because he tended to be very practically minded, and just he always wanted me to be secure and be able to earn a living.
Yeah.
And so I kind of ran my idea by him, and I was shocked when he said, I think you should give it a go.
Wow.
And so I did. And I know a lot of people don't have that, where somebody would say, I think you should, go after this and try it. But I was lucky enough that he kind of said, just give it a go for a couple months and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did. And it was harder than I expected for anybody who's thinking of making that transition. The first year, I actually didn't even earn enough to get a 1099 at the end of the year, which is that tax form that you get sent. You have to meet certain minimum requirements in order to get that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't even earn enough to get that at the end of the year. So I was very depressed and thinking, what did I do? I gave up this wonderful full-time job as a paralegal. It was secure. It was kind of cushy,
Mm-hmm.
What was I thinking? But I made some changes in regards to my products and where I was focusing my time. And I improved over the course of time. And my goal was always to be able to match my salary that I was earning as a full-time paralegal. And eventually I did match that, and I actually exceeded it. Mm-hmm. So it's been a work in progress, and there have been ups and downs. And it's been interesting. Over the past year, I've actually seen a slight shift where I'm getting less views through my Etsy shop, and that kind of has forced me to expand even more into local communities and different groups.
Interesting.
So it's always evolving and changing, and when you're an entrepreneur, you always have to be evaluating your business and looking at competition and ways that you can improve your own product. You're never going to feel like you have arrived and you now have it all.
Yes. And I'm so glad you said that, because I think that's something that a lot of small business owners and people who are trying to run their own businesses, myself included, I also have to keep reminding myself that it's normal to not feel like I'm there. We think, okay, I want to have my own business and I want to be doing this. But when you're technically doing that, you still feel like it's not done. I haven't arrived, and you just expressed that perfectly.
I couldn't agree more.
Now, about how long would you say realistically it took before you reached the break-even point of, well, I shouldn't say break-even, but before the income you were earning from your Etsy shop matched what you were earning as an employee? And then what was the time span from when you were even with your employment income to when you exceeded that?
It was all, so I was doing it, One Blushing Bride, as a side thing for about 4 years. And it was year 5 that I made that shift, year 4 or 5, where I decided to do it full time. And so that was the rough year. But it was actually the year right after that where I was able to say that I was making the same amount of money as I was as a paralegal. And then the year after that where, just kind of exceeded it.
Okay, good. And I asked that just to give someone listening a realistic idea of what a timeline could look like. Everybody's timeline will be different. Some people might reach that sooner and some people might take longer. It just depends on your market, your marketing, what you're selling, etc. So in Alicia's case, it was a year and then a year, which, is reasonable to give yourself. Sometimes I think people give up a bit too early when they don't see the returns come in quick enough. And so if if it comes in quicker, that's great. But you also want to keep going to make sure it's sustainable, because when you first start to see it, that's good. That's a good sign. But you also want to wait for the point of sustainability. I hope that's a real word. When you know that, okay, this is going to stick.
Yes, absolutely. And I have to say that the thing that you really learn being a business owner and making it your full-time thing is you really learn patience and the value of patience, as hard as that is, because there are so many times where I just, it's frustrating. And I know that there are people listening who are discouraged by the fact that it's taking so much time. And I know what that is like. I've had so many nights where just in tears over the fact, why isn't this where I think it should be at this point? Especially when it's something that you're really passionate about and that you love. You just want to skip to the end, whatever that end is, and be able to say that you've made it and that it's what you've envisioned it to be. And a lot of times it takes time, and it takes that persistence of plugging away at something day after day, and slowly but surely you'll get there.
Yes, just keep chipping away. I know so many times I want to skip to the end. I'm just like, I'm over the process. I want to get to the end. And then one thing you mentioned, which I just want to make sure I clarify, is that you said it took a while before you got the 1099. For anyone who doesn't know what that means, when you meet a certain threshold in sales, dollar amount or whatever currency the country that you live in is, when you reach a certain, actually, you know what, I shouldn't say that, because I only know this to be true for the US. So please forgive me, international sellers. I don't know exactly what the policy is outside of the US, but within the US, there's a certain threshold. Once you reach that, then Etsy will send you what's called a 1099. And that's a tax form that you use to report your taxes to the government when you file, so that you can pay the appropriate taxes on the income that you earned. And the 1099 is typically what contractors, people who aren't employed by someone, get their income reported on. So I just wanted to, in case nobody understood what that meant, explain what that was.
Yeah, you explained it perfectly. I wish someone had explained that clearly to me all those years ago.
I had another question. I like that you said you consulted with your dad about stepping out and doing this. What if he had said no? What if he had said, no, I don't think it's wise for you to do that right now? What do you think you would have done? What path do you think you would have followed?
Wow, that is an interesting question. I've thought about that over the years, and I'm not exactly sure what I would have done. And part of that comes down to the fact that there are certain people in your life that you really value their advice, maybe because they have a lot of wisdom to offer, they have your best interest at heart. And my dad was one of those people. And so since it was him and he had such a wealth of wisdom, he is one of those people where when he would say something to me, I took it very seriously, and I knew I had to evaluate it. So if it was anybody other than him, I might have given it a little bit of less credence. But since it was him, and he just had so much wisdom and had a lot of business savvy as well, he was an incredible businessman and numbers guy. I don't know. I can't exactly say. I think I was at the point where I was going to do it no matter what.
Yeah.
But I would have entered into it with a lot more reservation, I think.
Yeah.
And so I know it's difficult, because sometimes you feel like you're ready to embark on that full-time journey. And maybe someone's listening who has someone who's telling them that it's not the practical thing to do. And it really comes down to I mean, in the end, it's going to be your decision. But if you have those people in your life who you would consider your mentors and stuff, there is something to be said for listening to the counsel of others if they have that wisdom. And I think you can avoid a lot of mistakes in life uh, if you listen to people who you would consider mentors and people who have more experience than you in different topics and subjects.
Yeah, so well said. Thank you. Now, so your mom and your sister also have Etsy shops. Do you know if they're approaching it the same way you did to make it a full-time, turn running their own creative businesses into full-time employment for themselves, or have they taken different approaches?
Yeah, so my mom, she runs Wing Shadow Wraps, and she has an Etsy shop and a Ravelry shop where she sells her designs. And she always explains it as this is her coffee money. So she really likes Starbucks, and so she feels justified in paying that amount to Starbucks every day if she has this side thing where she can say she's earning this money for her Starbucks. And that really motivates her to do a good job. I mean, I think she earns more than just her coffee money, but she was never intending for it to be full-time for her. And it's more just something that she really enjoys, and that's relaxing for her.
Yeah.
My sister, Julia, just opened her shop where she makes baby hats that are patterned after different animals and really cute designs. And her journey was also totally different. Her shop is called Teensy's Tinesies, and she's pregnant right now. And that's kind of what changed. That's what got her excited about opening her own shop, because she started thinking down the line and the fact that she wanted something where she would hopefully be able to stay home with her kids and be doing that as more of a full-time thing. That being said, watching her start out, it reminds you of just how much effort and work goes into building that solid base and building a solid brand and stuff. And she's doing an incredible job, and I'm very proud of her. And but I think both of them have come about it in a different way than I have.
And I like to talk about that because everyone is on Etsy with a different plan and different goals. And so it worries me sometimes when people think their journey needs to be identical to someone else's journey. Everyone's journey is different. Everyone's goals are different. What we're doing is different. And that's the joy of running a creative business. You're creating it to be what you want it to be.
Yes, I totally agree. And I also think that it can be a bit intimidating if you spend too much time comparing your journey to somebody else's journey, because you just, as humans, or I don't know, maybe it's just our tendency to kind of be harder on ourselves and stuff. So, it's good to look around and see what other people are doing for inspiration and to kind of try to improve your own products and your own shop. But you should never try to, you should take it all with a grain of salt, because, they're a different person. They have a different story, and they have a unique skill set that's different from yours, and you just can't compare the two.
Absolutely. So, Alicia, what does a typical day in the life of one blushing bride look like? How do you manage your time? How do you divide up all the responsibilities? Because you're a one-woman show. So what does that look like?
Well, it's not always easy, because I would have to say that running my own business is definitely more hours than a regular 9-to-5 job. And a lot of times it's things that are maybe not the most fun tasks. I'm lucky because a lot of my hours are spent actually making the products themselves. I'd say maybe about 2/3 of my time is spent making the veils, which is the part that I absolutely love.
Yeah.
But in general, I'll wake up in the morning. I'm not a super early riser, so 8 or 8:30 or something.
What?
And
The
I'll just
world
go
has
right
moved
on over
on by
to
then. I'm kidding.
I'm like a little cranky in the morning, so like don't talk to me until after I've been up for a couple hours and am more awake and aware.
Yeah.
But I'll generally go right over to my computer and I'll answer Etsy convos or email messages, anything that's customer service related. And I'll do that for maybe about an hour or so, and then I will make sure that all of my packages are ready to go, ready to ship out. I also I send out free samples of lace and tulle to any bride or any person that requests it. And this is really important because in the bridal industry, colors can vary so much. And so I'll make sure that all my samples are packaged up and ready to go. And it's kind of nice because USPS comes right to my doorstep to pick up all my stuff. If anybody doesn't know about this, it has changed my life. They actually come to me to pick up all of my packages every single day. So I'm very grateful to them. So I'll get all the packages ready to go. And then I'll generally start working on my products and getting out veils. And I'll take a break, maybe sometime around noon or something, and I'll do lunch. Sometimes I'll do lunch with my family, with my mom maybe, or with a sister. And I might stop by the gym or something, and then I'll come back home, and the rest of the day really will be working on my veils. And sometime within the evening, I'll maybe think about some sort of social media thing. Maybe I'll take pictures of a new product that needs to get up. Every day is a little bit different depending on what needs to be done. I also, you have to fit in like administrative things like bookkeeping, which you can tend to push off until never sometimes. But that's an important thing to do. And working on your websites and your Etsy site. And I also sometimes will meet with brides in the middle of the day and actually have a one-on-one consultation with them. So every day looks a little bit different, and it can be a struggle learning how to juggle all those things and giving priority to the things that need to be given priority.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for sharing your whole process, because I know a lot of people strive to say, be their own bosses, but it takes a different level of discipline because nobody's going to hold you to anything. And if you let things go, that's your business. You're responsible for it all. So it's nice to see how other business owners structure their day and their time just to stay on top of things and, keep the ship running.
Yes.
And for anyone who doesn't know, and this is only for US-based sellers, USPS, what Alicia was referring to, will come and pick up your package if you have at least one that you're mailing by priority mail. And you can throw in anything else with that package, not into the same package, but you can leave anything else with the package as long as one of them is going by priority mail, and then schedule a pickup and they will come to your door and take your packages. You don't have to go to the post office. You don't have to go looking for a place to drop them off. And it's such a lifesaver, especially if you're busy making and creating, and going to the post office might be inconvenient, but you need to get your packages out. This is a free service that is so worth taking advantage of.
Yeah, I agree. And they just have a simple form you can fill out online, and you just indicate the days that you'd like them to to come, and I have it going on an ongoing basis. Great. So that they come basically every day.
Yeah. Now, something I wanted to ask. So you, with weddings, I just feel like you have to be like extra careful, because the last thing you want is an angry bride. And brides it's easy to get angry sometimes. Whether or not the anger is justified is a whole different discussion, but you know how brides can be sometimes. I shouldn't say all. And so the fact that you meet with them and you show samples is really helpful, because, colors are so important, shades and tones and all that when it comes to planning your wedding. It's amazing how detail oriented you have to get when it comes to weddings. What I wanted to ask was, when and how did you transition from sourcing your supplies from retail outlets? And I'm just assuming that you started out sourcing from retail outlets before moving over to wholesale suppliers. And how did you find good, reliable suppliers to work with?
That was a very scary process for me, because it was an area that I felt unqualified. And I didn't really have somebody who could give me advice on where to go to find those good wholesale places. So before, I would just get materials from places like maybe Michael's or Joann's, but they don't even have all of the bridal materials that I would necessarily need. And so I did a lot of research online, and looking at different factories. I also like to incorporate materials from any sort of traveling that I do. So I very much enjoy traveling, and so whenever I go someplace, I make sure to pick up something that's local that I can incorporate into my wedding creations. So I've picked up everything from amber, like the amber stone in places like St. Petersburg, pearls from Hawaii, lace from places like Estonia. They have these Estonian lace makers that this is their full-time thing. So I'll pick up little bits and pieces from my travels and kind of incorporate that into my work. But finding those big distributors, wholesale places, was hard. And it started with just a simple Google search and kind of seeing what other people were doing in the industry. And without the internet and being able to research those places, I would have been lost. There are places like Alibaba and stuff like that where you can kind of find out about the quality of different factories and what their processes are, and you can read testimonials and that sort of thing. But still, the first time that I had the big bulk order, which eventually you do have to do, otherwise you're just not going to be making enough of a profit on anything that you're selling. That was very scary. And my first order was for about $1,000 worth of lace. And I had done all my research, but still something in the back of my mind was still thinking, what if this is like a scam? And you never know. And so it all showed up at my studio, which is attached to my house. And I was so relieved to get that first shipment. And I've changed suppliers several times over the course of the past 7 years, just depending on, I'm pretty picky about the material that I use. It's very important to me. And so I've had to change it around just depending on different situations that have come up. But it's also important for anybody who is looking to buy wholesale supplies. Something that I've learned the hard way is you don't want to have too much of an inventory, because one of my scariest situations that I had was I had ordered all of this beautiful lace, and I had a great supply of a bridal illusion tulle that I ordered from a local California place,
Mm-hmm.
and I had, I don't know, at least a couple $1,000 worth of the raw materials, and we had an infestation of some sort of moths, and we didn't even know exactly what it was, but
Oh, you're
they
kidding.
ate into all of my materials, and it was all a big loss.
Oh, no.
So I'll just take that, just start small, and don't ever buy something that you're not willing to take that risk on. You know, you need
Whoa.
to be okay with the
Yeah.
fact, even if the worst were to happen and, you know, my studio were flooded or there were a fire, that I would still be okay. You know,
Yeah.
everything in moderation. You need to buy in big enough batches that you are getting it at a good deal, but you shouldn't buy so much that you're going to be devastated if something happens.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. I never stopped to think about that, but yes, you're so right. Oh, man. I don't even know what I would have done if, because that's a lot of money just gone.
I was like crying, you know.
I
It
would
was
be
like
too.
it was a disaster. It
Oh,
really
man.
was.
Oh, no.
But you learn along the way, and
Yeah.
it's those mistakes that you make that end up being the things that make the most interesting stories, right?
Yes, so true. Yes. The best lessons.
Yes.
So let's talk now about how you got traction to your store and what you do now to get people to come into your store, to attract buyers to your Etsy shop, but not just your Etsy shop. You also have an e-commerce website. It's oneblushingbride.net. And so you're like doing double duty to run your own independent website and the Etsy shop. How do you promote yourself? How do you promote your business?
Well, I think that the most important thing to get excitement around your business and your products, I think it directly relates to being open about your own story and sharing it on social media or with customers. Just being very transparent about your story and your struggles and your creative process. I think that really lets people kind of see a little bit into what it is that you're doing, and it makes them excited about it. I think that it's very important to build a brand around your product, and to spend some time thinking about what it is that you are passionate about and why it is that your products are different from the products that somebody else might have. You know, what is it that keeps you up at night and, you know, makes you excited? What are the things that set you apart? And I think building that brand can do a lot. For me, it has really helped me with my customer referrals, where I work with brides and they're really excited about this brand that I have built. And it encourages them to share it with their friends and their families. And that's especially important in my industry, because in general, it's going to be a one-time customer who hopefully is not coming back for another veil, you know, a couple years down the line.
At least not for like 50 years.
Not for like 50 years. Yeah, exactly. That's the goal.
Yeah.
So I need my customers to be really excited about their veil so that they tell their friends and their family about One Blushing Bride. And it's a slow but steady process to build up that brand and that reputation. But I've really started to see the effects of that over the past couple years, where so many of my brides are saying, oh, my sister bought a veil from you a couple years ago. She said I couldn't go to anybody else. I had to order from you. And so I think building up that brand is invaluable to create the excitement that is necessary for sustaining your business.
Yeah. I like that you do some things that are uniquely you, or uniquely, you know, unique to your business, I should say. one is your focus on customer service. You already talked about meeting with brides sometimes and showing them fabric in person. One of the things I read on your website that you do also is that you pray for each of your brides and you ask them how you can pray for them. How is that typically received by a bride when you make that offer?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a scary thing because I know every person's faith is so personal to them, and some people are very antagonistic to it, and that's totally fine. I've actually never had somebody be offended by that offer. It's something that I wrote in my bio on my Etsy shop and on my standalone shop at oneblushingbride.net. I just have a brief blurb about the fact that it takes me at least a couple days to make each wedding veil. And so if you have some sort of special prayer request, then please let me know and I'd be more than happy to pray for you. And I definitely don't force this on people, but you would be surprised by how many people reach out to me with different prayer requests for so many things. I mean, I've had brides who've had miscarriages, who are dealing with relatives that are dying, brides who are dealing with just crippling fear because they've had these family members die and they're struggling with anxiety and depression, brides with really serious health crises that they're dealing with. And I think that even if my customers don't have the same beliefs that I do, I think a lot of times it's comforting for them to be able to say, I'm struggling with this. Is this something you can be praying for me about? And honestly, it's become a little bit of a ministry for me. And I didn't really expect anybody to take me up on that offer when I put it up there. I was just, I was feeling this way, especially because I come from a family of a strong line of believers, and I grew up hearing these stories of my great grandpa who was actually beheaded for his faith over in Turkey before my family immigrated here. So I grew up hearing these stories of faith, and I had to step back and think, what am I doing that's sharing my beliefs and my passions with other people, and how am I making an impact on them? And that's what led me to put up this brief blurb in my bio about being willing to pray for my brides. And it's so incredible. I have formed so many wonderful relationships with brides and women just because of that. And they share what's going on in their life, and I'll pray for them. Even now, years after I've prayed for a bride, I sometimes I'll become Facebook friends with these brides, and and they'll give me updates on their life, and now this is what's going on, and now I'm having my first child, and here's a picture of me and my husband on our 2-year anniversary. And so it really has helped me form these relationships with brides and to become almost like virtual friends with some of them. And I think it's just in this world today, everybody just wants to be seen and to feel that they are loved for who they are. And so this is one small way where I can kind of make that personal connection with brides. And if they want to be prayed for, then that's totally fine. And if they don't, then that's also totally fine as well. And it's been unexpected to me just how many brides will take me up on that offer, because I am this anonymous person who they're not really worried about running into me somewhere. And so they feel like they can be very open with me and almost have that counselor sort of role. And I enjoy it. It's one of the parts of my jobs that I enjoy the most. Yeah.
Oh, I can imagine. Yes. And I mean, I'm sure somebody could say no if they wanted to. But it's such a stressful time in your life getting married. Well, I shouldn't say, I mean, some people might not be stressed when, they're planning their wedding and all whatnot, that, I can only imagine when someone reaches out and extends, an offer to just help take off that burden. And if all you have to do is just say, this is what I'm struggling with, yeah, sure, please pray for me. Whether or not I believe whatever, whether I believe the way you believe or anything is going to come of it. But just having someone who, like you said, who sees you and hears you and knows that, hey, you're a person and you could be going through things, because when are we never going through stuff?
Right.
I just think that's a nice hallmark of what you do for your clients.
Thank you. And I'll also, I've heard of other sellers doing this as well. I'll write a personalized note with every veil that I sent out. And so if they've asked me for prayer, then I might reference that in the note. I think that's actually a really good way for business owners to make that personal connection, is to just do something small, like a little note or something that reminds the customer that it's a real person making their items, and it kind of makes that connection, and it makes people, it makes them feel an emotion, a good emotion that is going to make you stand out.
Yeah. Now, are trunk shows part of your marketing strategy? Do you ever attend any, or do you use social media to help promote your Etsy shop, or those are not things that you have dabbled in?
Well, I have not done trunk shows, although I am definitely a fan of the show Say Yes to the Dress, and I enjoy watching their trunk shows that they always do. But I have had more success with doing social media, and also with contributing veils to different events. So, for example, I'm a part of this community called Orange County Wedding Professionals, and it's a group of photographers and flower arrangers and designers and dressmakers and, veil designers like me, who all come together and live in Orange County, and we kind of support one another in the wedding industry. And we'll tend to have a quarterly event that we put on, and it's kind of a networking event. And so, for example, we have another one coming up in about a month or so, and a part of this is going to be a photo shoot that they're hosting. And so I'm going to be contributing a couple of my veils for that photo shoot and letting them use that. And this way people kind of get to see my products in action. It's almost like a form of a trunk show, just on a smaller scale. And I found that to be very useful, especially for the local community, because there are a lot of brides around where I live. So if I can make those connections with wedding planners in the area, who can then refer me to brides who maybe have some sort of specialized request, then that's invaluable, especially because I've seen a big increase in different unusual requests, where brides will actually want to bring maybe a vintage wedding dress that was their mom's, or a vintage wedding veil that was their great grandma's. And they'll want me to take this piece and repurpose it into a new wedding veil for them. And so that's something that I can't do with everybody, because, I can't be working with a bride who's across the country who wants to ship me her whole wedding dress to recreate something. But for the local community, it's really valuable, because I can do some of those more unusual projects.
I like that. Now, how did you get plugged into this particular group, and how would you advise someone listening who might want to get plugged into a similar group in their own community to go about finding such a group?
Well, this group was actually, I had worked with a bride maybe about a year ago, who I guess was talking about her One Blushing Bride veil with her wedding designer. And or wedding planner, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
All the words kind of get jumbled up when
Yeah.
So she had recommended me to her wedding planner, and then the wedding planner reached out to me and said that she had a bride with some sort of special requests that she needed help with. And so I met with the wedding planner and her bride. And this wedding planner, actually, I'll give a shout out to her because she's incredible. Her name is Lizzie Liz, and she's in the Orange County area. And she's actually the head of this group. So she runs Orange County Wedding Professionals. And so she was talking about it with me and how I needed to get plugged in. And I took her up on the offer because I could see she was really knowledgeable about the topic.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was coming at a time where I really needed help in learning how to kind of expand my business and get better at things like social media. And so I took her up on the offer, and so it was a recommendation.
Okay.
But since then, I have found that it's fairly easy just to do searches on Facebook for other communities
Mm-hmm.
like that. For me, I've just typed in, wedding, Orange County or California,
Mm-hmm.
and I found all sorts of Facebook groups that I've also joined. And some of them are better than others. It takes a little bit of persistence because not all of them are active.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to find a group where people are offering advice and not just trying to promote their services.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so some groups are better than others about that. And I think you just have to do some research and try different things, and you're not going to get it right on the first time. And so if you join some groups that aren't quite for you, that's okay. You are learning from that experience, and try something else.
Yeah.
That's the thing about running a business. You just have to keep trying different things until
Yes.
something kind of sticks.
Yeah, there's no one formula that everyone can follow that, will fit everyone exactly. Now, the wedding planner, did you say her name is Lindsay Liz?
Sorry, Lizzie Liz.
Lizzie
So,
Liz. Okay. Does she have a website that I can link to, or?
She does. I believe it's Lizzie Liz Events, but I'll probably send that to you afterwards.
Okay.
You can make sure that you have it right.
Okay, perfect.
Because she's phenomenal.
Yeah. Okay, good. Good to know. Now, do you have any advice? Actually, no. Before I ask you that, there's one other thing I wanted to mention. On your Shopify site, you use Shopify for oneblushingbride.net. One of the things you're doing is a campaign of sorts for brides and women in general. And can you talk a bit more about what that is?
Yes, I am very excited about this campaign. So basically on my site, if you go to oneblushingbride.net, you'll see lots of different veils and photos of brides. And every single photo that you see of my products and of my brides are shown on real women. So they are on real brides with real stories. Mm. They are not shown on models. And this is something that I am very passionate about because I think that it's hard to be a woman in this society. Mm. I think we can be judged very harshly based on a certain set of standards of whether it's beauty or the way that society thinks that we should act and behave or your personality. So I think it can be hard to value yourself. And so I kind of wanted to create a campaign that was fighting against this cookie cutter definition of what beauty is. Mm. I want to show my One Blushing Bride veils on real brides because, I've had my own struggles with kind of accepting myself over the years and learning that it's okay to be different than other people, whether it has to do with my physical appearance or my personality and my passions. It's been a process of learning to accept that. And so I want to show products that are on real women who are all completely different, so that we can kind of fight against this this norm of what society says an attractive woman is supposed to be like. And to go along with this theme, I actually have a line of veils that are all about inner beauty. And so they're named different things like joy and peace, and I have a patience veil. And so they're all these veils that are basically inspired by real brides that I have known who have had real stories. And just for example, I have this cathedral veil that I call my joy veil. And if you click on it, you'll see that I have a brief definition of what is joy. And so my definition is that it is exhilaration, delight, sheer gladness, the breathtaking anticipation. So it's just kind of a small definition that represents some sort of bride that I've known in her own personal story. And it's kind of a small way that I can fight these standards that society can impose on us.
I like that. I love that you're doing that. And quite honestly, all these brides could be models if you ask me, because I've till today never seen an ugly bride. I don't know if that's even wrong to say, but it's so true. And I like that they just cover, the full gamut of what humanity looks like. And so anyone can envision themselves in this veil, because they look at just regular, normal women that you see on the road wearing this veil. And I think it just adds something to it. It just makes it so much more attainable. You know how you look through bridal magazines and you look at some of the pictures and you're like, yeah, that looks nice, but not me.
Absolutely. And that's part of the struggle that you have, because you see these bridal magazines with, stick thin models, and you see the TV shows with these perfectly made up women, and it applies to men as well. I'm just talking about women because it's brides and that's my industry, but it applies to both men and women. And so thank you, Ijama. I'm glad to hear that you like it.
Yeah. Now, Alicia, someone is listening and they're at a crossroads with what to do with their Etsy shop. What would you tell that person today?
First of all, I know what it is to go through what you're going through, and I don't think that there is an Etsy seller out there who has not experienced that. So you are not alone. I know it's tempting to feel that you're the only one who has been through this, and it can be a very emotional journey. I would reiterate something that I said previously, is just to have that persistence. I think if you keep trying, try out different products, try out different designs, try out different methods of marketing yourself. If you are really persistent with it, I think that you will have success. You just have to have patience. And I would also recommend taking some time to reflect on yourself and what your own story is, and thinking about what makes you and your craft or your business different from what other people have to offer. How is your story different from their story? Because I think that is what's going to make somebody decide to buy from you rather than from somebody else. So really just hang in there and give it time, and continue doing. Since you're listening to this podcast, you're already doing a lot, because you're in that process of trying to learn how to better your craft and how to improve your business. So keep doing things like that, where you're on this continual process of learning and expanding your horizons and making new connections with other like-minded people.
Oh, thank you so much, Alicia. Thanks for that reassurance. It's just helpful to hear from other people who've walked the path that it's not abnormal and there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, are there any resources that you are currently using to run your business that you find particularly helpful that you don't mind sharing with us?
Well, I've heard other people say this, but podcasts like this Etsy Conversation podcast for sure are very helpful. There are other ones. There's one called Etsy Success. That one has been helpful for me. There's a podcast called Project Entrepreneurs, which I have found very inspiring. It's actually made by the founders of Rent the Runway. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's a company where you can rent different dresses and things for events. And they have this whole project they're doing where they're inspiring entrepreneurs with different informative materials and stuff. And not all of their podcasts may apply to all of your audience. For me, I pick and choose because they do have ones that talk about fundraising and that sort of stuff. And for me, I don't want to go that path. I want to be self-funded. And but they've had so many good episodes about things like branding and customer service and and how you're supposed to represent your own brand and business. So podcasts and things like Audible books and YouTube videos for me have been invaluable because it means I don't have to actually enroll in some sort of formal course to continue to improve. Some of the basic tools for me have been PicMonkey to edit my photos.
I love PicMonkey.
Yes, it's easy to use. It's free. I mean, two really great things.
Yes.
And QuickBooks, that has changed my life. It really has. I used to do all of my accounting on an Excel spreadsheet, and it took forever, and it was the bane of my existence. And since I got this QuickBooks Self-Employed, it has really helped me. Google AdWords I've been playing around with, but I don't think I've quite gotten the hang of it yet.
There's a learning curve there.
It's a learning curve, definitely. I tend to rely on the Etsy dashboard with the statistics and stuff a little bit more. But yeah, those are some of my top recommendations.
Now, for the QuickBooks that you use, do you use the application that's integrated into Etsy, or did you buy the software as a standalone?
I use the one that was integrated with Etsy.
Okay, great.
And it does have its limitations, a little bit more simplified than the full QuickBooks. But for me, it works well because I needed something that was simple and that I would understand. And so for anybody who feels overwhelmed by receipts and all these different expenses, I highly recommend it. It's a really good deal. It's something like $10 a month or something. I mean, it's really worth it.
Yeah, it's quite reasonable. Now, fun question. I know you already mentioned the Etsy shop, but I want the Etsy shops, but I want to just formally ask again so we get another plug for them. Do you have any Etsy shop shout outs?
Oh, yes. I love this question. My sister's shop, she does hand knit animal hats at her shop called Teensy's Tinesies.
How do you spell that? Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's a unusual one. It's TEENSYS.
Okay.
TINSYS.
Okay.
So Teensy's Tinesies.
Okay.
And she does the most adorable hand knitted hats. And then my mom does quite advanced shawls and wraps at her shop, Wing Shadow Wraps.
Okay.
And she has a shop over on Ravelry as well, if there are any knitters out there.
Is her Ravelry shop the same name?
It is the same.
Okay, so on Etsy and Ravelry. Very good. I will link to all 3 shops so you can go check out what Alicia's mom and sister are doing on Etsy and Ravelry as well. Thanks for sharing those.
Thank you.
Now, Alicia, if someone wants to get in touch with you, say we haven't touched on something and they want some more information from you, what's the best way they can connect with you?
I'm pretty good with all of my Etsy shop. That's a really fast way to get in contact with me. Just send me a convo through there, or through my standalone site at oneblushingbride.net. There's a contact page and I'll get back to you right away. Or you can see me on my Facebook or Instagram. It's also at oneblushingbride.
Okay. And I will link to all these places where you can connect with Alicia. So you can go check out what she's doing, ask her more questions, or just say hi. So I will have those in the show notes for this episode. Alicia, thank you so much. Thank you for making it sound so easy, but also letting us know that it's not always so easy, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. And just by applying yourself and working hard, it's hard work, but it pays off. And you've demonstrated that to us. I thank you so much for sharing your story and your journey. And I would love to hear what's going on with Blushing Bride a year from now, because I just think, you're going to be taking this in a whole other level just because of the passion that you have for what you're doing and for your brides, the clients that you serve. So if I reach out to you in a year or so, maybe less, would you come back?
Absolutely. You don't even have to ask.
All right.
Thank you.